Sunny Hostin is known for diving into tough conversations, and this time was no different. What started as a casual topic quickly turned into something deeper when she suggested that Caitlin Clark's fast-growing fame might be helped along by white privilege, a term she often brings up. But this time, the reaction didn't go as expected. Even LeBron James, who's usually outspoken on issues of race and justice, spoke up not to agree, but to offer a different view. He praised Clark's talent and her major impact on women's basketball, making it clear that her success shouldn't be boiled down to anything less than her skill and hard work. He pushed back on the idea that her popularity was simply about race, saying she deserved credit for changing the game.
You know, I've been a basketball fan since I can remember. I played basketball with my dad in Harlem when I was 5 years old. So I remember loving the game, and the game not necessarily loving women back, right?
At all.
At all. And the WNBA started in 1996. First games played in 1997. And we're just really now talking about it. And so if Caitlin Clark is the vehicle that will bring this sport that I have loved so much and so long to little 5-year-old girls playing in Harlem, I say yes, bravo. I have no problem with that.
At first, it seemed like business as usual, another round of the same old talking points. This time, the claim was that the game of basketball doesn't give women the same love in return. But let's take a moment to look at the full picture. Since its beginning, the WNBA has been supported financially by the NBA. That support has kept the league going, even though it still hasn't turned a profit. That's not a personal opinion, a well-known fact. But instead of acknowledging this, the conversation was framed in a way that made it sound like women's basketball is only now getting attention. As if the world suddenly opened its eyes. Really? The View has been on TV longer than many of us have been adults. If this issue mattered that much to the show, why wasn't the WNBA regularly featured over the years? Where was the steady support before? And just when it seemed like things might shift to a fairer or more balanced discussion, the focus landed right back where it often does on Caitlin Clark. And once again, the angle was her race.net.
With that being said, I do think that there is a thing called pretty privilege. There is a thing called white privilege. There is a thing called tall privilege. And we have to acknowledge that. And so the part of it is about race, because if you think about the Brittany Griners of the world, you know, why did she have to go to play in Russia?
Because they wouldn't pay her.
Because they wouldn't pay her.
Because they wouldn't pay, not because she was black, but because they didn't believe in the WNBA.
This is part of my point. So now, you know, Caitlin Clark is bringing this money, these sponsorships, we hope, into the league, and other players will benefit from it. But I do think that she is more relatable to more people because she's white, because she's attractive. And unfortunately, there still is that stigma of against the LGBTQ plus community. 70% of the WNBA is black. A third of the players are in the LGBTQ plus community.
That said, I do believe certain kinds of privilege exist, whether it's being attractive, being white, or even being tall. These things can open doors for some people more easily than for others, and we shouldn't ignore that. Take Brittany Griner, for example. She had to go overseas to Russia to keep playing and earn a living, not because she wasn't talented, but because the WNBA couldn't pay her enough to stay. Not necessarily because she's black, but because the league just wasn't taken seriously. That's part of the bigger issue. Now, Caitlin Clark is changing things. She's bringing money, attention, and sponsorships into the WNBA, and hopefully, that rising tide lifts all boats, helping other players as well. But I do think her race and appearance play a role in how widely she's accepted. She's seen as more relatable by a broader audience because she's white, because she fits a certain image. And unfortunately, there's still a lingering bias against the LGBTQ community, which adds another layer to how different players are perceived and treated.
I'm rooting for Caitlin because I've been in that seat before. I've walked that road before. I hope she kills. I hope Aaliyah Boston does amazing. You know, I hope they do great. You know, I'm just kind of in this mode right now because I'm getting the same, you know, thing from watching my son, who's a 19-year-old, kind of getting a lot of animosity and hatred towards him when he's just a kid trying to live out his dream. You know, there's a very small number of men and women that actually get to live out their dream of playing a professional sport. And we have grown men and women out here doing whatever they can to try to make sure that does not happen. That is the weirdest thing in the world, but it is what it is, and I'm glad that Caitlin has a great head on her shoulder.
About 70% of WNBA players are black, and roughly a third identify as part of the LGBTQ community. So let's be honest, there's a kind of view privilege happening here. It's when loud opinions and dramatic claims take the place of clear thinking, and too often, shouting someone down is treated like winning the argument. But beyond the noise, there's a serious question. Why does Sunny Hostin feel the need to turn nearly every major sports story into a discussion about race or appearance? Her recent claim that Caitlin Clark's success is mostly thanks to white privilege doesn't just miss the point. It undermines the very athletes she says she supports. Reducing Clark's rise to the color of her skin ignores everything that got her here: the relentless training, the mental toughness, and her consistent performance at the highest level. That kind of comment doesn't push the conversation forward, tears it down. Now imagine if the roles were reversed. What if someone like Skip Bayless or Colin Cowherd suggested that LeBron James only succeeded because of his race? The backlash would be instant and deserved. Because at the end of the day, sports run on results, not identity. In sports, your numbers do the talking. Stats don't care about skin color or background. They reflect how you perform, and Caitlin Clark's numbers are loud and clear. She's not a media invention or a product of hype. She's a rare talent, the kind that only comes around once in a generation. Even LeBron James, who's been vocal on social issues throughout his career, spoke up about this. On a podcast with JJ Redick, he didn't hesitate to praise Clark, calling her the real deal. No gimmicks, no shortcuts, just pure skill and hard work.
I want to point something out. She is the NCAA's all-time leading scorer of men and women. In February, she broke the women's record. In March, she broke Pistol Pete Maravich's 3,667 point record. She's had more 30-point games than anyone in the past 25 years.
Yeah.
Okay. She holds a single season 3-point record for women. She's the Big Ten's all-time leader.
Set the politics aside for a second. And it's easy to see that LeBron James is a true example of resilience. Much like Caitlin Clark, he's lived his entire career under intense public scrutiny. Every decision, whether it was leaving Cleveland for Miami or speaking out on social issues, has been analyzed, criticized, and sometimes twisted against him. He's been labeled too soft, too political, too strategic. But through all of it, LeBron has stayed locked in on what really matters: the game, the result. A career so legendary, so consistent, that he's firmly cemented in the greatest of all conversation. Caitlin Clark is now facing a similar path. She's navigating a wave of public opinion, most of it coming from people who couldn't come close to doing what she does on the court. The louder the criticism, the more obvious the truth becomes. At the highest levels of success, peace and quiet are rare. The spotlight brings heat, and the higher you go, the more people try to pull you down with stories that have little to do with your performance. That's exactly what's happening now. Instead of recognizing Clark's historic accomplishments, some voices are trying to reframe her rise as a product of privilege, anything but the result of her dedication, grit, and undeniable talent. But here's the thing, that argument doesn't hold up. The facts speak for themselves. And to prove it, just listen to Whoopi Goldberg. Yes, that Whoopi who recently highlighted Caitlin's numbers on air. When you actually look at what Clark's done statistically, the debate gets quiet real fast. Because, in the end, the numbers don't care about politics or opinions. They tell the real story. And that's just the beginning of Caitlin Clark's incredible run. After dominating in college, she's already breaking records in the WNBA, and she's still a rookie. With the Indiana Fever, Clark has set franchise records for the most double-doubles, the most three-pointers, and the most games with 10 or more assists. She's also become the fastest player in league history to reach 100 made three-pointers, as well as the quickest to hit 350 points and 150 assists. That's not media hype, that's making history. Her on-court performance earned her a spot on the All-WNBA first team and the league's Rookie of the Year award, proving she's not just fitting in, she's leading the charge from day one. But her impact isn't limited to stats and awards. She's making a massive difference off the court. Fox Sports executive Michael Mulvihill reported that Clark's games are averaging 1.2 million TV viewers, nearly 3 times the WNBA's usual average of 400,000. And it's not just TV. People are showing up in person. According to AP reporter Tim Reynolds, games with Clark are pulling in crowds of around 16,000 fans. Without her, that number drops to about 8,500. That's not a small increase, that's a surge. Even LeBron James has taken notice. He hasn't just praised her skill, he's pointed out how she's shifting the entire landscape of women's basketball. He even made a bold prediction. This is only the beginning of something bigger, because what Caitlin Clark is doing isn't just impressive, it's changing the game. That's exactly right. Athletes like Caitlin Clark don't just succeed in their sport, they raise the bar for everyone around them. Every so often, a rare kind of player comes along whose impact goes far beyond wins, losses, or stats. They change how people see the game. They bring in new fans. They make people care in a way they didn't before. Michael Jordan didn't just rack up titles, he helped turn the NBA into a worldwide phenomenon. Serena Williams didn't just dominate tennis, she redefined strength, excellence, and what it means to lead with confidence. Ronda Rousey didn't just win in the octagon, she made people take women's MMA seriously. And in global soccer, Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi have done more than win trophies. They've brought massive attention and credibility to leagues in the US and the Middle East, changing the sports landscape as we speak. Now, Caitlin Clark is showing early signs that she's on that same kind of path. You can see her influence in the packed arenas, in the record-breaking TV ratings, and in the electricity she brings every time she steps on the court. She's not just playing basketball, she's changing how people talk about it. She's sparking national conversations, drawing new eyes to the women's game, and shifting the way it's viewed by fans, media, and even the league itself. And, honestly, sports would be a much more inspiring space if we spent more time celebrating greatness like hers instead of constantly trying to frame it through race or identity politics. Caitlin Clark's story is one of vision, talent, and once-in-a-generation brilliance. Let's not lose sight of that.